Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm making 3 cards for Mystical Scrapbooks. Their challenge for this month is black plus 1, and for these cards I decided to use black plus gold. I've also decided to use the slimline cards. Here in Australia we use the DL size envelopes for our business envelopes. They measure 8 5/8 inches by 4 1/4 inches, or 22 centimetres by 11 centimetres. Therefore I'm going to make my cards 8 1/4 inches by 4 inches, or 21 centimetres by 10 centimetres. Each of the card bases have been cut from black cardstock. I've cut the cards from a piece of A4 cardstock, so they are already 8 1/4 inches wide, so I cut the other measurement at 8 inches and score at 4 inches along the 8-inch edge. This leaves me a panel that is big enough to be a card front, and I will use that panel on several of my cards today. For the first card I'm going to use this Studio Calico Huey's Masks stencil, and it's called Bubbles, and I'm going to sit that over the top of one of my panels that I created earlier when I created my card bases. Then I'm going to use my palette knife to put this Deco Foil Transfer Gel Duo through that mask. I want to get a good coverage and I want it fairly even. I don't want it too lumpy and bumpy, although I don't get it completely smooth. Because I'm going to apply foil over the top of this, and where the gel doesn't sit flat with the top of the stencil, the foil won't attach to the gel, so I'm trying to get it level, but as I said, I don't achieve that. This duo gel can be used with or without heat. I'm not sure whether the one that isn't duo can be used in the same way or not. The gel goes on white, and when it's dry and ready to apply the foil over the top, it's clear. So now I'm going to set this aside to dry. The foil I'm going to use is this Fab Foil, and I'm going to use gold, of course, because that's my theme. And I'm going to cut a piece of the foil that is long enough to cover the front panel that I've created. Then I'm going to use my brayer to run over the top of that and apply an even pressure so that the gold is transferred from the foil sheet onto my gel. I trimmed this panel down so that it measured 7 3/4 inches by 3 1/2 inches, and then I cut a piece of gold mirror board that was 8 inches by 3 3/4 inches to go between this panel and the card base. I'm going to attach these layers to my card base using my glitter glue. To create the greeting for this card, you can see I've had a couple of shots here and it hasn't worked very well. The edge of the stamp has been cut out. I bought this stamp secondhand from somebody, and when I stamped it and heat embossed it, as you can see, there's bits that I didn't want on there have come on to the background. So now I'm cleaning my stamp off so that there's absolutely no ink on there whatsoever, and I'm going to try again. This time I'm going to be a little more light-handed with my ink and not press so hard on my stamping platform, so thereby trying not to get that edging around the greeting. I'm going to use my Versamark Embossing Ink and some gold embossing powder. It's called Detail Gold. Then I'm going to heat it, of course, with my heat tool. Now that I've got a sentiment that I'm happy with, I'm going to trim that down and then mat it onto a piece of the same gold mirror card that I used to mat my foiled panel on. Before I attach my greeting or sentiment to the card, I'm going to attach a piece of chipboard to the back of it so that it stands out off of the card base, and I will use my glue to attach that as well, because I want a good stick between the foil and the sentiment. I attached a piece of white cardstock to the inside of the card so that there was a place to write our personal greeting. Okay, we're going to create this card next. I'm going to cut my black panel down to 7 3/4 by 3.5, and I'm going to cut a gold mirror card matte for that, which is 8 inches by 3 3/4. So these are the same size as the previous card that I made. To embellish this card, or to have extra gold on it, I'm going to use some wax. So I'm using Metallique Wax, one of Finnabar's Art Alchemy, and it's called white gold. So first of all, I'm going to run my black panel through my big shot using this embossing folder. Now I'm not sure of the brand, but I think it's a Papercraft, and it's like roses. So I've run that through, and now with my finger I'm just going to lightly rub over the top of it with the wax so that the pattern will stand out much better. The wax, I don't want that to be too heavy, so I'm dipping my finger into it, then rubbing a bit off onto some scrap paper. I get a light coverage, but I do want it a bit heavier, so I will go over it a couple of times. It's easier to apply a few light coats than it is to go too heavy and try and get it off. I did go too heavy in 1 or 2 spots, and I found that I couldn't get it off, so be careful if you're going to do this. Now I'm going to use my art glitter glue and attach my layers to the front of the card. This was a very quick card to come together. All I have to do next is my sentiment. For my sentiment, I'm going to use this stamp. It says "With Love." I do not know what brand it is or where I got it from. It looks like I've cut it off of another stamp set, but just exactly what stamp set or where it came from, I've got no idea. Anyway, I'm going to use my stamping platform and stamp this onto some black cardstock, and then heat emboss it with the same gold embossing powder. It's called Detail Gold, and it's by Personal Stamp Exchange. I trimmed the sentiment down so that it measured 3 1/4 inches by 3/4 of an inch, and then I matted that on a piece of the gold mirror card that measures 3 3/8 by 7/8 of an inch. The sentiment was attached to a piece of chipboard before it was added to the front of the card in the bottom right hand corner. I also added a piece of white cardstock to the inside of the card so we had space to leave our personal message. My next card is a shaker card. To create my shaker wells, I suppose you could call them, I've used my scan and cut, and I've cut 3 panels from white and 1 from black that are exactly the same, and I'm going to use my glue to attach all of these layers on top of each other. Before I attach the black layer on top of the white, I put a piece of acetate over the top of the set of white panels that I've stuck together. This is going to be the front piece that holds the glitter from falling out of my shaker. The black panel is now stuck on top of that. I trimmed a piece of the gold mirror card down to 3 3/4 inches by 8 inches to go behind my front panel. My front panel actually measures 3.5 by 7 3/4, so the same size as the others, and I've cut the holes out of those using my scan and cut, as I said. This was then attached to the front of my card. I couldn't really decide what I wanted to put in my shakers because if I use gold, well then that's going to be hidden by the gold background. So what I ended up deciding on doing was using half gold and half black, and that way I get a bit of a mixture. I tipped a little pile of each of those onto my card base, and then I attached the front panel with the holes cut in it on top of that using glue. And when you do this, you need to make sure that you get a good coverage of glue all around and around those circles so that your glitter doesn't come out. I find that you have to be particularly careful if you're using this superfine glitter because it will find its way out through anything. To create the sentiment, I'm using this Hero Arts stamp. It's called Happy Birthday and its number is C5594. It's probably discontinued now because I've had it for a long time. Once again embossing that with my gold embossing powder. I'm going to trim the sentiment panel down to 2 5/8 by 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to mat that onto some gold mirror card that measures 2 3/4 inches by 1 inch. I then attach this to a double layer of chipboard. I wanted to have a couple of gold frames around my windows, so I used my scan and cut once again to create those circles. I just used the offset function and created those so that they was, well, each frame is about 1/8 of an inch in width. I used glue then to attach my circles so that they lined up nicely with the inside edge of the shaker window. The sentiment was then attached to the front of the card so that it slightly overlapped the bottom circle. I also added a piece of white cardstock to the inside of the card once again for the personal message to be written on. So there we have all 3 cards from today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I will put a link to Mystical Scrapbooks challenge in the description box below, so hop over and have a look what they've got going on. And if you're not already a subscriber, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and if you click the notification bell, you'll be notified when I upload each new video. Thank you for being here today, and I hope you can join me for my next video. Bye.